Hi, good afternoon. We have found our 4-H alumni today out in the fields of McLean County. And so we are doing another edition of the 4-H Clover Connection, but this time we're doing Clovers and Combines. So we're visiting with alumni that are working hard this fall season and learning about their 4-H memories and how 4-H had an impact on them. And today I have with me both Ken and Becky Robb, who are Illinois 4-H alumni, and we're going to get started. So Ken, thank you so much for letting us be out in the field today with you. It's starting to rain, so we're going to get a little show here. But first of all, let's start with Ken. And Ken, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up in 4-H.
First off, rain is much better than fire.
Oh, this is true. Yes, he's had that experience. So,
no, born and raised right here in McLean County. Was an 11-year member of Linden Leadham 4-H Club. Heavily involved on the dairy side of things as my main project, but also did projects such as crops, photography, believe it or not, I love photography, and vet med, a lot of different things, gardening, you name it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, 4-H meant a lot, but this is home and probably always will.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Becky, you came to McLean County, but tell us where you had your 4-H roots.
Absolutely. So I'm an import to McLean County, but I have very deep roots in 4-H itself. I started in McDonough County. That's where I was born and raised, and I was in 4-H honestly since I was 3 years old, because I had two older brothers that started in 4-H when I was about 3, and there's a combine starting up, and we were a 4-H family. My mom was the leader. We did it all, and I went to University of Illinois and met Ken, and now I work at Growmark in their communications area, and we have the cheese business and the farm, and life is busy.
Yeah, life is very busy. You guys sure do it. You both have such strong roots in 4-H, and so I think that's probably brought the two of you together too with your backgrounds. But I know also going to the University of Illinois, 4-H House probably drug you to 4-H House, or to the University of Illinois, I should say, because of that experience. So we can talk a little bit about your college experience too, and how that went through. So you talked about some of your 4-H projects. What are some of those projects that were popular, that you really enjoy, maybe that aren't around anymore? But what were some of your 4-H projects that you really enjoyed?
Sure. You want me to start? You want to? So the things that I remember most are cooking and gardening and things like that. I think most of them that I enjoyed are still around, or what I remember is still around. They've just added to a lot more from there. And some of them, like the international projects and things like that, I think I would have really liked.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly, I did I don't know what it's called, but it's like you buy an outfit type thing.
Oh, you buy a, yes,
Yeah.
I took that too.
And I was really into that because it was all about shopping, and that was cool.
You always got a new outfit.
Exactly.
Mom had to buy her for 4-H, right?
We were usually frugal enough that we didn't buy a lot of accessories.
Right.
But when I did the You Buy 4-H outfit, I got accessories, so I thought that was cool.
Exactly. That made a big difference, didn't it? So, oh, that's awesome. How about you, Ken?
You know, I was more of a hands-on project kind of guy, whether it was the dairy, animals and things like that. I think a big part of what's happened in 4-H, a lot more of the project base is heavily technology driven.
Yeah.
And, I'll be the first to admit I missed out on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not good with things like that. And unfortunately, once again, I wish there were certain things I could do all over and take some of those projects. Computers scared me.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to tell you I can navigate my phone for the most part. But other than that, I stay away from technology. Growing up, it was a lot of, we had a group of guys, we showed animals together. We'd talk about share the fun and 4-H softball. Fast pitch softball was huge for us.
Yeah.
And, you talk to the generation even older than us, my parents' age, and we used to have a state tournament, and then they played the state down at the state fairgrounds, the championship game, or wherever the location would be. but we really got away from some of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it's what's happened is the kids have, in my mind, so many more options and activities. And if they're going to play sports, they need to specialize in a sport.
Yeah.
And they can't reach out and do what we did
Right.
growing up, where we would play 3 or 4 sports.
Right.
And so I think it's that way too when it comes to the 4-H side and the projects. You really need to focus on a couple of them. Whereas when we were growing up, we would have 10 or 15 projects. It's just not that way anymore. So it's a little different ballgame.
Yeah, it is. But those are experiences that you remember, friendships that you made, whether it was, you know, my husband, I think, played softball with you, and that's one of his highlights. That's one of the things that he loved about 4-H.
He
And
did.
so
He tried to play softball.
he tried. I know. Yeah, exactly. Or baseball. I shouldn't say softball, probably. I'll get in big trouble. So.
Softball was good. He was a heck of a catcher.
But again, those are things that, you know, even though 4-H has changed over the years, I think it's an opportunity that the base is always still there. And I think our roots and are always still there in those projects. And 4-H has changed based on kids today and looking at the STEM projects and things like that, that our kids are in. So, yeah, so I think that's a good thing that 4-H has done. But as you think about how 4-H prepared you, how do you think 4-H may have influenced your life? What are some of those skills that you took away?
I'll get that one. You know, the one huge credit that I give 4-H, because as an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, the thing that scares a lot of kids is getting up and being able to talk in front of people. And I'll tell you what, at least in our club growing up, I know my mom and dad were leaders, but even with Dan Kelly and those guys, you got up there and you did a talk and a demonstration once a year.
Yeah.
There was no way around that. And if you didn't do that, there was a lot of heck to pay. You know, and it was
right.
one of those things, you didn't do the award things. You didn't take care of your activities.
Yeah.
And that was just part of it. So yeah, I think, I don't want to use the word being forced to get up in front of people, but you had to find a comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think being forced is probably how a lot of first-year 4-H members felt. That's not something they're used to doing, and so they're finding those opportunities and learning those skills, and that takes a few years to get under your belt. So forced might not be a bad word for those first. Yeah, I have to do this because of 4-H.
Right.
So yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
What about you, Beck?
So I would say a lot of what Ken referenced, especially with the speaking part of it. When I was in high school, I did the FFA speaking contest,
Sure.
and I went to the state contest finally, and I remember getting up in front of a professor from WIU, a speech professor, just to practice and to get some critique, and he said, "You've been doing this a lot your whole life, haven't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah," and I named off all of the things between showing cattle and
Sure.
and 4-H and FFA and all of that, and it all builds upon each other.
Absolutely.
But the interesting thing is, from 8 years old, you have an opportunity to work on those skills when, you know, all it is people who love you, and you just get up and you talk about your rabbit,
Right.
or you talk about how to make a batch of cupcakes or something like that,
Sure.
something that you know. So it makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And even to this day, I have to get up in front of people almost every day
Yeah.
and talk. And it just makes you that much more comfortable with the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a skill that no matter where you go or what you do, whether it's through volunteer work, through working with colleagues, I mean, I think that's something that's a benefit no matter what. So we talked a little bit about your career path, Becky, and we know what Ken is here doing today as he's combining the fields. But tell us a little bit about how 4-H may have influenced your career path.
Sure. So in many ways. So 4-H it gave me a foundation for learning and for growing and for figuring out what I wanted to do. When I was in high school, I was in 4-H and FFA, and I was reporter for both. And one of the professors at University of Illinois, Jim Evans, who became my mentor and just absolutely absolutely adore everybody.
Everybody, yeah.
Everybody who had Jim Evans.
We all love Jim Evans.
Dr. Evans is just, a hero to many of us. He saw my writing and he reached out to me, and it was like, oh my gosh, a professor from the University of Illinois came to my house and talked to me.
Right.
And I went to the University of Illinois, and then I pursued a communications degree, and it wouldn't have been without 4-H and FFA and all of those influences that guided me in that direction. And as you mentioned, when I went to the University of Illinois, I lived in 4-H house. And I mean, those years of college really totally shaped, between the University of Illinois and 4-H house, totally shaped who I am today.
Absolutely.
My career choice, working at Growmark, which I've been there for 27 years.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I mean, that's where I met my husband.
He's proud. He's proud.
I usually say two things. To be in the Rock family, there were two criteria. One, you had to be in 4-H, and secondly, you had to go to the
University of Illinois.
Bleed orange and blue.
You fit right in.
I put those two criteria, and the rest is history.
Well, and it's a good history at that. So you both have made a huge mark on the community and in your positions and what you've been able to do with the cheese farm, which we'll talk about, Ken. But let's talk a little bit about your career path. And 4-H, I know, gave you your foundation. But where did you take it from there?
So 4-H, first off, farming and 4-H combined, judging cattle, things like that. What was really neat for me, how it kind of kicked off when we talk about bleeding green and then being able to bleed orange and blue in our case. When I was a freshman at U of I, there was some real comfort in the fact that a lot of the professors that I knew ahead of time just through 4-H, through the extension service. And for me, that was huge because you knew who Mike Hutchins was, you knew who Gene McCoy was, you knew who Dave Fisher was. And there was a lot of ease in that when you went down to school for the first time. You sit in this classroom that's got 400 or 500 people in it, and you're thinking you're a pretty small fish, and you are. But it made learning that much more fun too.
Yeah.
So really what it did was that was a start for me of how 4-H kind of led into the University of Illinois in that case. But the other neat part was being able to get up and talk in front of people. It's always been my thing. It's not uncomfortable. I can't say I'm never nervous.
Sure.
Because there's times when we're all nervous. But the feeling that I get when I get up in front of people, and Becky says this a lot, is you can sell ice to
Eskimos.
Which probably isn't the most correct PC thing to say anymore, but what it's done is, it took me on my path. My path was not 4-H, FFA, University of Illinois back home. I actually was in sales for 7 years before coming back home.
Right.
And so this was a big thing for me to be able to do, was be able to have it be a part of it down the road and give back. And before we had Leah, we got involved in being 4-H leaders and doing what we could, but business has kind of taken that over. And it's hard for me to commit when I'm not sure where I'm going to be 99% of the time. Except I know I want to be in bed by 8 o'clock at night. But no, 4-H was a jump start for me into a lot of different fields before coming back to the cheese opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've made a huge impact, and agriculture is a small community, even though you, like you said, your professors, you were on campus, you had those experiences. And I think 4-H does a really good job and hopefully continues to have those opportunities for kids today. So as we think about kids and we think about kids wanting to join 4-H, what's some advice that you give a 4-H member, a youth wanting to join 4-H? Why should they join?
I think my biggest advice is just they should join because they get to try a lot of things at a very early age to figure out what they do enjoy. I've come to believe that everybody has their gifts to give, and it's really important that you foster foster those gifts, that you figure that out, that not everybody can do X or Y or Z. And the sooner that you figure out some of those things, the more enjoyable it is, because then you start to give back.
Yeah.
I see that in the older 4-H kids that, you know, they are in from 8 years old to, you know, 10 years old, and they're learning all these things and everything's brand new, but then they start to get into 13, 14, 15, and 18, and they can give back to the other kids in the barn, and
Right.
it's really fun. I've seen that in Leah and
Yeah.
how she blossomed. I've seen that in all the kids in 4-H, and how
Right.
they blossomed and stayed. And I know it's really, really hard with all of the demands on their time and how specialized they become in school and traveling programs of many, many different kinds. But I'd say the variety of friends that you have in 4-H and the variety of friends that our daughter has made in 4-H, they still enjoy those people because they come from various backgrounds and they all have something in common.
Yeah, that common thread. Yeah, I think that's really important. And your daughter is following in your footsteps now.
Yeah.
So we never thought that would happen, but she is. She's following in your footsteps, which is great. So, Ken, what do you think?
You know, my involvement, when you ask this question, goes right to the Illinois State 4-H Foundation. And I was on the board there for a number of years. And what it did was really open my eyes. You know, there's a lot out there, but you get locked into your comfort zone here in McLean County, and there's so much more than cow sows and plows.
Yep.
There's just so much more available for these kids to do now. Not only is 4-H available kind of old school like we think about, but we're taking it into the schools.
Yep.
There's meetings everywhere. It's an opportunity that any kid can have. It's not just farm kids.
Right.
You know, and that's a misconception a lot of times.
Absolutely.
It's similar with other organizations, but 4-H in particular, it's out there and it's available. If you can't find it, you're not looking.
Yeah, we'll help get you connected for sure. So that's not a problem if someone's watching this today. So I think that's a great thing. And then my final question is, what's your favorite 4-H memory? I know you've got them.
You want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, this is kind of weird. It was a life lesson at Fuller. I went to 4-H Club Congress when I was 14.
Okay.
Which is a little young.
Yeah, that's very young.
And it was in Chicago at that time, so I am showing my age. But But I remember getting in a cab with a bunch of girls, and they were from all over the U.S., all over the place. And the one girl said, asked the cab driver, she said, "Is that amount per person or for the whole cab?" And unfortunately, I was in the middle of the back, and unfortunately, the cab driver said per person.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds weird as my favorite 4-H memory, but I have always remembered this because I thought, I'm in the middle of a cab, and we're all girls, and this guy is driving us, and he's not being truthful.
Right.
So it was a life lesson.
Sure.
Now that sounds really strange as my favorite memory.
No.
But it's those things that you get to experience and learn from that you carry with you.
Absolutely.
And I will never not think about that when I get in a cab.
Yeah.
Because it's those life experiences. So what it cost each one of us, $5, whatever. And we were all safe and everything was fine, but it was just an interesting life lesson that I had on that day because of 4-H, because of all of the experiences that I got to have. Yeah. Sounds a little weird, but I still carry that.
No, because that's something you remember, and you know that he wasn't being truthful. And then how do you, as a teenager, decide how do I address that? At 14, how do you handle that situation? So you're going to think about that now. You said you get in the cab and you'd address it today, where you may not do that as a 14-year-old.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So, and Ken, what's your favorite memory?
I have.
I know you do.
So the ones that could be repeated on film. No, I have always enjoyed Share the Fun in softball. And we had talked a little bit about it prior, and your husband was involved in a lot of those situations with me. But one Share the Fun act in particular, I think we were going to be in seventh grade, 6th or 7th grade, and We all dressed up in dresses. Yeah, they're old.
They were old at the time.
Might not be the most PC thing, isn't it?
Well, it's the truth.
It is the
So,
truth.
I've
That's
seen
fine.
pictures, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I remember plain as day. I can still see what they were wearing when we beat Silverleaf in softball. And Tony Mackey was playing for Silverleaf, and he ran over Eric Wheel at the plate. And Eric held on to the ball, and we won that game on that play.
Oh gosh.
There's just certain things that have happened that you think, wow, how do I remember that? Because there's
A few years since
there's
then,
a lot
yeah.
of stuff I'd like to forget, but it just doesn't work that way.
Understand.
So no, it's a
Understand.
lot of different memories, but two of them in particular, and it's some of the younger stuff. I remember a lot of show ring,
Sure.
showing and being able to compete against kids, not only in the county. Our county growing up was a strong dairy county, and it was a lot stronger in prior generations. But I was able to compete there. I was able to compete in 4-H down at the Illinois State Fair and the junior show, and then also going to Louisville and showing at the national show.
Oh,
So
sure.
we had a great time. Now more of our focus is on, of course, cheese business.
Yeah.
We're not out in the show ring like we were, but that's okay. It's just the way life is.
Yeah. And you got to do that with your daughter though, with your 4-H too.
Absolutely.
So that was a good experience, I know.
There are some really neat opportunities, and I know when you came out, Leah was riding with me here in the combine, and there's certain things that my daughter really appreciates. And it's not just daddy-daughter time, as we like to refer to it, but it's an opportunity to kind of talk, and sometimes we're talking about some old memories and things like that, or discussions about the boyfriend, or lack thereof. And it's things that I don't have time during the day to talk about.
Yeah.
But with 4-H, it allows me, believe it or not, to ask some proper questions. Not go out on a limb and say, hear the usual thing, oh, Dad. It's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thank you both for your time. Is there anything that you wanted to share that you didn't get the opportunity to share?
I can't think of anything at this moment.
Okay. Well, we greatly appreciate the opportunity to put us in a cab today and a combine.
Cozy.
Cozy time here with the Rock family, but a great time. And we appreciate you sharing your memories, sharing your experiences, and definitely we know 4-H impacted you. So thank you for joining us today for the Illinois 4-H Clover Connections and in our Clovers and Combines edition. So we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Bye.